Hi, welcome to Monty's Misadventures. I'm Monty, and these are my misadventures. Anyway, we're going to do the Patterson Loop again today. There was nothing particularly unique about this ride, so I think I'll just discuss why I'm doing this in the first place, the riding the motorcycle. I'm over 60 years old, and I've only been doing this for a couple of years now. We rode a lot. Here's the short story. When I was a kid, we rode dirt bikes. You know, being a young teenager and all that, just loved it. We had a lot of fun doing it, and I actually kept one for. Oh, hang on just a second. Duck. Okay, got through that. If you don't duck, that would make a really good YouTube video. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, we were discussing how come I'm doing this dirt bike riding. Well, the short story is this: when my grandson turned, I think he was 9. He was 9. We decided to buy him a dirt bike, and when we were actually out shopping for it, my wife, we were in the motorcycle shop, and she's like, okay, well, we picked him one out. Now he's going to need somebody to ride with, so you get to pick you one out too. So maybe that's not exactly how it went, but kind of like that. And I was like, whoa, okay. So ultimately, I picked out this Kawasaki KLX 250. It's a dual sport. I misshift. I went into neutral and stopped, but that's not unusual, I guess. So anyway, I got the KLX 250, nice little dual sport, very underpowered, but it gets you around. Really falling back in love with the whole thing, the dirt ride. And I know I'm a little old to be doing this, but at my age, I'm not, really going that fast. And the few times I've fallen off, it's always been from almost a dead stop anyway. So no harm, no foul. I do wear protective gear when I ride, so I have armor under my riding jersey, and there's armor in the riding pants and the boots and the gloves and helmet, of course. So it's a fairly safe activity. Where I'm riding, we've discussed before, this is, I call it the Patterson Loop, but basically it's just a single track trail that I've made through the woods behind the house. I've got about a 2-mile loop, maybe 2.5 mile, depending on how you ride it. So it doesn't take very long. But again, I'm old, and for me that's a fair amount of time to be on the bike. It's a much bigger, much better workout than what I remember. When you're 12 years old and you're riding a dirt bike and you do it every day, there's very little effort involved. But at my age, it's considerable effort involved. Right now we're coming down to the creek, followed by an uphill grade. The uphill grade's got some pea gravel on it that someone in a previous lifetime, I guess, had put there. I think they brought ATVs down here, probably hunting. I really don't know. If you were to go off the trail to the left up here at the top of the hill, there's a teepee, I guess, or a lean-to, but a lean-to, I guess, would be a better description. Where I don't know what was going on there, but I guess it was a hunting blind or something like that. That's just my guess. Anyway, my the long story of the motorcycle riding was I did ride dirt bikes up until I was a grown man with children, and I actually had my last dirt bike was a late 70s model of a Kawasaki. It was a KE 250. Oh, hang on a minute. Log jump. There we go. Got it. It was a KE 250 that says, it's basically the same bike as this one. It was, except that it was a two-stroke 250cc dual sport as well, and I had that while I was in the Navy, and I rode it all over the place. I mean, I actually had two rear sprockets that I would switch back and forth. So if I was going somewhere on a long ride on the road, I would put the smaller sprocket on, and if I was just riding dirt tracks, oh, here comes the steep downgrade. And it doesn't show up very well on the GoPro, but this is a steep place, so I have to really be careful that I don't go slipping off the side. But anyway, I rode that little 250 all over the place and kept it for a long time. Okay, here's the one little problem that I had on this ride this day. This was a whole lot. It looks not as bad as right here. See where I just turned it completely around? I did complete 360. I spun completely out trying to go through this little ditch. I don't really know what happened, but I was laughing at the end of it because I did it without killing myself. And then back up the hill where you try that again. That second time was the charm. Where was I? Okay, talking about the dirt bike I had when I was in the Navy, and then I actually had ridden that bike up to at one point I was flying for a commuter airline out of Salisbury, Maryland, and I rode it up there from the Richmond, Virginia area, and if you looked on the map, that would have been about a 3.5-4 hour drive, but considering the gas tank only held just a gallon or so I was having to stop every I think I might have stopped there. I don't even think I made it 100 miles on a tank of gas, and of course you had to mix the gas. I say of course, that bike actually did have an oil reservoir that would mix the gas for you, but I never used it. I took it off because I was afraid that it would stop working at some point and seize up the engine. So I never really used that. So anyway, mixing the oil with the gas and driving all the way up there, it probably took me 8 hours to make the ride. And I'll never forget because it got cold. I wasn't expecting to be riding in the evening and at night. And the temperature dropped down to 40s, and I was really not prepared for that drive. I like to froze to death. I would stop every 20 miles or so at some point just to go inside and warm up, and then kept on going. Eventually though, I changed bases. I went from Salisbury to Newport News, Virginia, so I brought the motorcycle back. I think on that trip a friend of mine put it on the back of his pickup, and he brought me all the way to his home in Newport News, and then I drove it back the rest of the way, which was not a too big of a deal. Anyway, let's see. After that, I traded that bike, or actually my wife did it for me as a surprise for a birthday present. She bought me an old Honda 750, a 754 with the Windjammer fairing and the 8-track player. I've discussed that before in previous videos. It was a great bike, and I used that to drive back and forth from Richmond to Norfolk, where I was based, Norfolk or Newport News. And I did that all the time, so I put a lot of miles on that bike before it finally gave up the ghost. I rebuilt the top end once, which was fine, and that really went well. I'd bought another similar bike for parts, and then I spun a low end bearing, and that was pretty much it. I decided that bike had enough, and I found somebody that wanted to buy it to restore it. So everybody was happy. After that, I went many years without riding another motorcycle. So that had to be mid-90s when I parked that, when I was done riding that bike. So I went many years without ever riding another motorcycle, and I don't know really why. I just the street bike I really liked, but I was afraid of getting hurt because it's to say it's dangerous might be wrong, but I can't control what other people do in their cars, and when it comes to motorcycles and cars always win. So there's that. And I didn't ride again. So not until grandson came along and showed interest in riding. And I think what he wanted was a four-wheeler, an ATV, and initially here comes one of my favorite parts, just a little downhill followed by the quick uphill. I've fooled around with this a bit to find the best path to get over, and you go up over this little hump and then you go down the other side. But then I get a little bit lost on the other side and like, where am I? Which way do I want to go? I was supposed to turn right there to the right, but I kept going straight, and I'm like, oops, I went too far. But it was easy to get through all this. Okay, where was I? I was talking about, the grandson. He wanted an ATV or a four-wheeler, but I started doing some research on ATVs and four-wheelers, and turns out, especially for little kids, they are terribly dangerous. And the problem is that, now, of course, anybody that rides ATVs or four-wheelers will argue this point with me, and I'm sorry, but it's just, that's how I felt at the time. I suppose if you were very careful and a good rider, you would never have a problem with it. But when you wreck an ATV, you go down a hill in an ATV and it flips on you, it's gonna chase you down the hill. It's gonna be a big 300-pound, 400-pound, or whatever they weigh. It might be more than that. I don't really know. But whatever it is, it's going to be tumbling on top of you and with you as you go down the hill, as opposed to a dirt bike, which typically what happens is a dirt bike, when you slip on one, it just gets hung up on whatever it's sliding down and stops, and it doesn't try to beat you up as it goes along. So people, they get injured on dirt bikes, but generally not that bad, whereas the fatality ratio and a rate on ATVs are very high, especially for young people that maybe not have the skill set to be able to make sound judgment on something like that. So that's why we bought him a dirt bike. I'm sure he would have rather had the four-wheeler because they're, outwardly they're easier to drive. There's no real learning curve. You sit on them, you start them up, put them in gear, and you go. Turn it where you want it to go. And I make that, I probably oversimplified that, but into most people's mindset, just the fact that you sit on it and let it drive around makes it a lot easier. But we don't do things because they're easy. A great man once spoke about that. We do things because they're hard. Whoop, there went the tree stump again. The log crossing. I like crossing that log. It's a little bitty, but I like doing wheelies over it. Anyway, back to why I got that. Because it is hard. I want him to be able to learn that he can do things, that things just because they're hard doesn't make them impossible, and that you can learn to do things to a point where they become second nature and much easier for you. I think today a lot of kids are missing out on that whole thing, that they sit at a computer screen and you get very proficient at playing Fortnite or whatever the game of choice is that you're playing, but okay, you develop this one very minor skill set, and there may be some good to that, but I don't think there's a whole lot. I think there's more harm than good in spending a lot of time on a computer game. Not just the fact I thought this log was going to trip me up, but it was so rotten it just smushed underneath my wheel. Anyway, I think the computer games can be more harm than good ultimately, just because your brain becomes very single task. There's one thing that you're doing. You're not even looking. They fool you into living in what you think is a 3D world, but it's really just a 2D world that you have. It's up and down, side to side, and you can make 3D images in that, but your spatial awareness is not improving because just for instance, you can't learn to bowl by going on a computer bowling game. You'll never gain the skill sets needed to knock the pins over. You might think you can, but you can't. So anyway, there I am, lost again. Speaking of skill sets, I probably need better skill sets myself. Up, here we go. We're moving. Or nope. Wait a minute. Here we go. All right, we're moving again. I think I had like a new trail to double back on an older trail. and I was just trying to figure out where I'd cut it. I didn't have my ribbons with me the day I cut the branches out of the way, so I didn't mark it. I need to get in there and mark it. You might notice that there are markings on my trail, that there are little red ribbons. Essentially what happens is, if you keep them on your left side, it'll take you to the furthest point away from the house. So you put them on the right side, and that will always take me home. If there was someone else that came out on my trail and found them, it would be the same for them, but it would take them to my house, of course. Then we'd probably invite them in for dinner and talk about things that would bore them to death, and they would never want to do that again. When I first started riding down here, I would get lost every once in a while, and I could sort of find my way, because you're under this tree canopy, so you can't really see the sun to get your directions. But then it dawned on me I could listen to where the construction people were, because it's a new neighborhood, so there's always construction going on, and I could sort of get my bearings from that. But I'd still get lost every once in a while walking or riding back here. After a while, though, I've been doing this for a few years, and now I know it kind of like the back of my hand. You'd be hard-pressed to get me lost. Just with the series of little creeks that come down and the silt ponds and so forth, that I know where they're located, and I know how to stay between them or on them, and that keeps me situationally aware. All right, we kind of went back down towards the beginning and worked our way back up towards the hill with the gravel on it. So now I'm going to be going back down the hill with the pea gravel. I guess we'll call this Pea Gravel Hill. How's that for a name? If anybody has any other ideas, leave them in the comments, and we can rename the hill whatever you want, as long as we keep it clean. This is a clean, G-rated channel. Little climb right here. It's funny because it's a little bit on the angle, so I tend to slide a little bit going up it. And I'm trying to figure out how to adjust my center of gravity by leaning the bike one way and me leaning the other way to be the most efficient at holding the bike down so it doesn't slide off the side of the hill. But I'm not quite there yet. I'm learning as I go. But we're coming up on the end of the video. My battery ran out, so I probably should have charged it up before we left. But anyway, all I'm going to do is come back up just about to the beginning on the little track behind the house, and I'll wind around that a couple of times just for the fun of it, and then head back to the house. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope I didn't bore you to death. I was pretty much boring myself to death. I think I might even fallen asleep while I was talking to you there for a minute. But anyway, everybody stay safe, have fun, get out there and ride your dirt bikes, and enjoy the holidays.